Yes, that fanfare can only mean one thing. It means I asked Kyone Wolf and Kat Pastor a few minutes ago if they would play the fanfare. That's what it means. It probably means something else, too. It means there's something really important. I can't even say it with a straight face. It means something really important is happening in terms of political coverage, because that's the kind of fanfare that shows use when they're doing some kind of important political coverage. So that's how you know. Okay, I'm glad we had this little talk. All right, so obviously the New Hampshire results. First of all, New Hampshire had a primary yesterday. Second of all, the results were available. So we're making progress, right? You've got to see that as an almost 100% improvement. And we'd love to talk to you. I didn't book any guests. I could have booked guests. I know people. I could have booked guests. I know people who would have been good guests. And I did, I should say, talk to Bill Curry at some length after the Wheelhouse today. I have to say one more thing about that, but let me give the phone number. You can call in and say, I think ideally we should be talking about the Democratic field, where you're leaning. If you live in Connecticut, you're not going to vote for a really long time anyway, not until April. And we could talk about why that is if you want. I'll stop using that particular sentence intonation as well. So, I think also your vote still maybe this time might mean something because so many things are unresolved. So they're talking about a contested convention. Okay, I should also tell you that the news media, they always like to talk about a contested convention because they hope they get to go to one. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. But it is unusually unresolved, and I could talk a little bit about why I would say that, although I think you already know. But first of all, let me tell you the phone number so you can call in. You can just call in and tell me who holds the key to your heart right now. I mean, among the political field, Democratic nominees. I would be mildly interested with Valentine's Day on the horizon in who holds the key to your heart. But I don't think it's appropriate. All right. So 888-720-WNPR. That's the number you're going to call. If you're not into the alphanumeric thing, it's 888-720-9677. It's 888-720-9677. Okay. And so that the premise of the show here is your opinion and your experiences and your feelings are as good and as valid as anybody else's. That may not be true, but that's the premise of the show today. All right, so things to think about here. Yes, it actually is because of the way this primary has unfolded, and maybe because of the condition of politics today, this is an unusually unresolved field. There's some old sayings like there's only 2 tickets out of Iowa. Well, there's more than 2 tickets out of Iowa. And there's more than 2 tickets out of New Hampshire. But there may be only slightly more than 2 tickets out of New Hampshire. And so let's get that on the table right now. Biden, really could be dead man walking. And I feel as though Warren is in more trouble than her followers want to admit. Both of those people, for Biden, this has been said over and over again, so I'll be the umpteenth billion person to say it. But if your main argument on behalf of yourself is that you are the most electable candidate, it doesn't help if you keep losing elections and caucuses and things like that. That tends to undermine the premise if you lose. And if you lose badly, if you come in 5th, that doesn't make you seem electable. Granted, and I'd be happy to talk about this as well, the privileging of Iowa and New Hampshire and this other handful of states, it's really got to stop. This is a very screwed up way to arrive at nominees. I think there are considerably less screwed up ways. We can talk about that as well. So let me say another thing. Let me say 2 more things, and then we could calls here, so we're going to go to the calls pretty fast. One thing is that I'm no longer as Bloomberg curious as I was. I was Bloomberg curious on Monday. Tuesday was maybe not a good day to try to be Bloomberg curious. I can explain why that is. And I'm just considerably less Bloomberg curious at all today. That was one thing. There was some other really important thing I was going to say, and I've actually lost track of it. So anyway, I'm not going to give out the phone number again right now because a lot of lines are busy. It's just a matter of getting all these phone calls qualified. I should tell you also that The reason that I'm forgetting things, besides the fact that I'm old, is that I've already done the Wheelhouse today. We had an excellent Wheelhouse. I am now doing this live show at 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. I am then later going to record a portion of Pardon Me, the final episode of Pardon Me, our impeachment show that runs on Saturdays. And then at 7 o'clock at night, I am going to record The Nose. So I'm going to wind up doing 3.25 radio shows today, something along the lines of that. And just, at a certain point, the bandwidth it just isn't there. So we're going to find out where that point is. I mean, I have nobody to blame but myself. I didn't have to do this particular episode today, but I just thought it'd be fun to talk to people after. Fun maybe is not exactly the right word, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk to people right after the New Hampshire primaries. Let's start with Carl. Carl's in Stamford. Hi, Carl. You're on the air.
Wow, I made it on the Colin Mack show. I am so honored.
Yeah, that
first-time caller. Wow.
That and $2 right. That and $2.63 will get you a medium-sized coffee at Starbucks. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. I am an ex-Republican. I used to hold office in the state of New Hampshire, the great state of New Hampshire. I then, that was very early on in my life. I'm now a resident of Stamford, Connecticut. And, but I still feel a great deal. I mean, my family was involved with politics for ages and ages. No more moderate Republicans. They don't exist anymore. Okay. I love Bill Weld, but they're extinct. I've been a Warren supporter all along because I just think that she's so damned intelligent and she's really gifted as a leader and as a legislator and just really a bright light. But I think right now the big challenge for the Democratic Party, which I am a member of now, is not to do with Jeremy Corbyn. Because, I've followed these people all along. Bernie is great. He's wonderful. But we don't need a revolution all the time. I think what people really want is just to have a normal, regular leadership again, a normal body politic. And I think that Amy, who is a very, very talented senator, she may not seem as presidential as some of the others, but she's certainly a lot more experienced than Buttigieg, who's delightful, but he's a kid, for crying out loud. I mean,
Carl, you're not being fair. He got a new Piggly Wiggly for South Bend when he was there. Yeah. You brought him in.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
7 aisles.
Well,
okay. Continue.
No, I basically have said my piece, Colin.
So where are you at? Are you in love with Amy now? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if I'm getting in love with Amy.
Well, it's a song.
I really want to. I mean, the main number one thing is to get rid of this monster that we call a president.
All right.
The Orange Menace has got to go. I mean, who's kidding? This is the number one thing that the Democrats have to do. Get rid of this son of what.
Carl, I'm starting to think you should have your own show. Maybe I should be a caller, but you're good at this. So I don't know what your day job is, but don't quit it yet. But he's kind of got the knack here a little bit. All right, so let me just say one thing before we get. I want to mainly get to callers, but it flows naturally from Carl. So you may be encountering the name Bytkofer. I don't even know how to say it yet on your Twitters or if you read articles and stuff like that. Anyway, Rachel Bytkofer, who's kind of a new data scientist who got famous for pretty close to nailing the exact margin in the midterms in 2018. And so her theory goes something like this. And it's not a completely unique to her theory, but it's a theory worth saying just because of what Carl just said. Her theory basically is that it doesn't matter who the candidate is that much. That, in fact, people already know which party they're going to vote with. In higher and higher percentages with each passing cycle, more people are aligned with one party and not the other. That swing voters are increasingly they're not disappearing, but they're in smaller and less significant numbers. So it really matters not so much who your candidate is, but how many people vote who think what you think. And if if more people vote who think what you think than who think what the other people think, then you're going to win. That doesn't really sound particularly revolutionary or sophisticated. But I mean, when you apply it to this particular paradigm, the stressing that people do about Bernie versus Klobuchar versus, in fact, if the Democrats articulate their message reasonably well, they're going to win, no matter who the candidate is. If they do a good job of articulating the message, keep in mind what their message really should be. And also keep in mind that large numbers of people are genuinely alarmed by Donald Trump and that there's no shame in saying how completely frightened you are by the prospect of a second Trump term, about the damage that it would do to the climate, the damage it would do to the democracy itself. There's no shame in saying that because the more revved up people are, the more likely they are to vote. Anyway, that's the bike offer theory. I thought I'd get it out there. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. We're going to start with Bettina in Madison. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Good.
Good. So I'm supporting and have been supporting from the very beginning Amy Klobuchar, just like the previous caller. I think that she's a common sense person, good basic family story, which she repeats often, and it resounds with people, especially in this last debate, where people walked into the voting booth without any idea what they were going to do. No, they wanted to vote Democratic, and as it showed in the polls, 50% were Democrats, 50% independents, and she soared because of her debate performance. And I'm hoping that despite she doesn't have a whole lot of money, although I've been sending my small contributions for a while, that her debate performances will help rocket her up to the top. I don't see Bernie being the guy because I think he taps out at a certain number. His Bernie bros have been supporting him for a long time. But I don't think that revolution story that he has will work if we have a Republican Senate. And that's the problem we're having with Trump is another revolution on the other side. So I think we need to go with a moderate. Amy's from the Midwest. We need to get the Midwestern people, moderates, independents, Republicans who are disappointed with Trump, to say the least, to vote for a moderate, where we're going to get something done where we might have a divided Congress. Are
you concerned that particularly if Warren does drop out, which is not going to happen tomorrow or the next day, but it may happen pretty soon. I mean, she may just run out of money. That then you'll have Bernie Sanders with essentially nobody fighting for his potential constituents, but you'll have Klobuchar and Buttigieg, and if Biden is still alive, which I don't think is going to go on that much longer either, but at least the two of them scrapping over the same scraps. That obviously can create a problem and put them into more of a plurality scenario?
I understand what you're saying, but I still think that people need to come to the middle of the country and realize we need to get the moderate people in the Midwest. People on either coast are going to vote Democratic. If we have a three-headed monkey running against Trump, we'll vote for that person. Even if it's Bernie, and I hope it isn't because I don't think Bernie can win against Trump. I don't think Bernie has enough support to supersede Trump's base. Everybody thinks that he has a great idea with, the health care for everybody, but it's not going to pass if we have a Republican Senate. So my personal feeling as a moderate, and I would love to see a woman president too, I think that we ought to look very seriously at Amy Klobuchar. I think she's got some good ideas, and given another couple of debates where she can't travel all around Texas in this next 14-state Super Tuesday thing, that if we have a couple of debates that might have people like the folks in New Hampshire looking at her and saying, you know what, moderate sounds like the way to go. I'm a Republican who's disenchanted with Trump, don't like the guy, could never vote for him, but she sounds like a woman that might be good for the office.
All right. Thanks for your call. I think you do a very good job of articulating that case. And I don't think you're Amy Klobuchar either. I was listening very carefully to your voice. And let me just say one thing. She made me think about one thing. You know what's quite possible? That given particularly the results in New Hampshire and to a certain degree the results in Iowa, that the people, I'm not counting Michael Bennet here, but the people who had to stay in Washington and work on the impeachment and who got off the campaign trail, that they may have benefited from that in various ways that are kind of hard to quantify. I mean, maybe just sort of taking a rest from campaigning, maybe getting out of that mode, maybe getting a little bit of physical rest. I mean, not that people working on an impeachment in Washington are sleeping a lot, particularly since they're probably on the phone with their campaigns the rest of the time. But there may be something about that little caesura, that little pause during the impeachment that helped Klobuchar and Sanders, because they both seem to be doing pretty well. I mean, maybe it could be what's the fallacy? Proctor hoc, post hoc Proctor hoc fallacy. It may not be really true. Okay, so I've been told that Adam would be an interesting bookend to Bettina. I will believe that. Hi, Adam from Plainville. Hello. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
So yes, I'm going to be a little upsetting to callers and a little controversial, but I am a Bernie supporter, and I'm actually kind of tired of people saying we need a moderate, because if you want something done to the center left, you don't start off negotiating to the center left. You start off farther to the left, like most of Europe does. They tend to all agree with Bernie Sanders, and you push as hard as you can to the left, and then you end up more towards the center left. I was very upset that Obama came out against Bernie, that Hillary came out against Bernie. I feel like he's been consistent for longer than I've been alive. And he, to go to our last caller, she said that I don't think Bernie Sanders could do well against the president. Well, I think it was Nate Silver's site that actually ran the numbers in 2016 and said, yeah, he actually would have done the best against Trump. So I think Bernie would probably be our best bet. And again, I know a lot of moderates won't agree, but I think that we as Democrats need to fight hard and fight a little dirty. And I think Bernie's the only one who could get that done.
All right. I don't think that was that upsetting. I mean, once again, this could be just the mood that I'm in right now, so I would take that for what it's worth. I actually think that anybody... Well, first of all, let's go to the head-to-head thing, and then I'll get back to the callers. But so right now in head-to-head polling, actually the person who does best head-to-head against Trump in polling right now is Mike Bloomberg. But some of that's because he hasn't been through the slings and arrows that everybody else has been through. But pretty much everybody beats Trump in head-to-head polling. It's gotten a little closer lately. There's kind of an impeachment bump that you get. So Trump's gotten his little impeachment. It's a little bit closer, but pretty much everybody beats Trump head-to-head. The question, of course, is do they beat him by enough? Do they beat him by enough so that you can look at it swing state by swing state by swing state, or you can look at it another way, which is at a certain level, a certain margin of victory. We now know 3 million votes is not enough to win by. That, you can still lose the election if you win by 3 million votes. That might not include enough from the swing states, but there's some other number that Nate Silver is probably trying to figure out right now, by which if you win, you just by kind of default, you've pulled the swing states along with you. But I think one of the things that would be a mistake, I think we're going to have a protracted primary season, which for the most part, political professionals think that is not great, because there's just so much invective being directed back and forth, accusations, undermining, stuff like that. Although I sort of feel as though there is a way in which there's a spore-like quality to the fields where it's kind of walled off from Trump. He doesn't know really who he's going to run against. It turns out it might have been a waste of his time to almost get impeached over trying to destroy Joe Biden. When in fact, he's probably not running against Joe Biden. I don't know how much Biden was hurt by the way that his name came up so much in the impeachment hearings. Undoubtedly, he was hurt by it, but I don't think Joe Biden was going to be the nominee anyway. So in a way, the fact that Trump doesn't know who he should try to destroy right now, that may actually be kind of helpful. But ultimately, the Democratic Party has to do what all the Democratic candidates at least give nominal lip service to, which is agree that they will unite. They will unite in a very serious way, that this is an emergency election. And I think the electorate, substantial portions of the electorate, do understand that 2016 was an announcement of what can happen and what did happen if not enough people devote energy to the political process. All right. So what am I going to do now? What time is it? Where am I? I think I can take one more call. I'm going to take Monica. All right. Here's Monica in Southbury. Hi, Monica.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Just fine.
Good. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm going to jump right to the ticket. I would like to see Bloomberg and Klobuchar because I think that a lot of people voted foolishly for Trump because of his business expertise, which turned out to be not at all. And I think that would those people would maybe go toward Bloomberg. And I think Klobuchar would bring in the women and the Midwest. So even though Bloomberg had some negative press this week, even those people that voted for Trump might not see that as what has come up as negative.
All right, I'm going to do something kind of mean to you. I mean, not mean to you directly. I did this to Betsy Kaplan yesterday, so I'm going to do it to you because you're obviously a very well-informed person who's given this a lot of thought. Who was Hillary Clinton's running mate in 2016?
That is mean. I'm gone blank.
All right. Who was, I don't know.
More well-informed lately.
Yeah. Who was Mitt Romney's running mate in 2014?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but the answers are Tim Kaine in the case of Hillary Clinton. Paul Ryan was Mitt Romney's running mate. But people don't remember that. I was being mean to you, Monica, but I've done this to lots of people. People have no freaking idea. And one of the things that I do think people do is they put too much emphasis on running mates. Once in a while, a running mate can make a difference. Sometimes because it's such a bad decision, please consult the name Sarah Palin in your political encyclopedia because it actually calls into question the judgment of the person who picked that running mate. So you can have a thing. You can have a thing like that. You can also sometimes have a kind of running mate who kind of doubles down on the notion of who the candidate is. I think Clinton Gore was kind of an important team. It was important that Al Gore was part of that team. It sort of announced there was just a different kind of person who was running and a person who represented a certain kind of challenge to the promotion by seniority East Coast elite that was symbolized by George H.W. Bush. But mostly, I think running mates don't do squat, and everybody...
I think if it was a woman, I think it would attract, and I think that women would think she'll be the next president.
Right. Well, I mean, people maybe think that, but I don't think very many votes have been cast by... I mean, and Bloomberg is going to have so many problems. One of them is that he's not a woman, but he's also got a big problem that Black and Latino people don't trust him at all. And we will get into that in the next segment. So there's all these people who are walking around going, how about Stacey Abrams? Well, first of all, what if Stacey Abrams doesn't want to run with Mike Bloomberg? That's the whole other question here. Anyway, I do think people fetishize running mates. They are not necessarily all that helpful, but people want to think they're helpful, kind of the way you think, maybe it's good if I sit next to the emergency exit. I'll get out of the plane fast. Yeah, it probably won't actually. All right. Unless Sully is piloting it, it's not going to help you that much. All right. Let's go to the break and we'll come back.
Practice my speech every day. I know just what I'm gonna say. Before I get the chance to speak, they cut me off for...
All right, we're back. Let me give you the number to call. We got one or two lines open right now. 888-720-WNPR. That's 888-720-9677. I sound like one of those machines or something. But I want you to know the phone number. That's all. All right. So we got Dan, Regina, John, Anthony. You're all wonderful people. We're going to start with Regina. Regina, you're on the air.
Hi, Colin. How you doing?
Just fine.
Excellent. So I think Bloomberg is the best candidate for a number of reasons. One, no one will get under skin of Trump more than Bloomberg. It could be potentially very entertaining up into the election. And I think Bloomberg has the power and connections to win the election. And I think he would be good, quite honestly. I think the stop and frisk will not hurt him as bad as everybody thinks it's going to hurt him. He's apologized for it. He's recognized it was a bad policy. I think that people will appreciate the honesty and integrity that he has, and Trump certainly does not.
All right. First of all, great points. I want to spend a little bit of time with this. And let me just sort of set this up. If you're calling in, just hang on. I just won't take that long. First of all, let's go through this stop and frisk thing. So one of the problems, of course, is about 2020 is we live in an age where anything conceivably could be tracked down. And one thing I told Mike Bloomberg I can't tell you how many times I said this to Mike Bloomberg. I said, don't talk about stop and frisk with Billy Bush. All right? Don't do it. I'm not going to explain why. Just if Billy's in the room, don't talk about stop and frisk. So what did Mike Bloomberg do? 8-2.
95% of your murderers and murder victims fit one MO. You can just take the description, Xerox it, and pass it out to all the cops. They are male minorities, 15 to 25. That's true in New York. It's true in virtually every city. And that's where the real crime is. You've got to get the guns out of the hands of the people that get killed. So you want to spend the money, put a lot of cops in the street, put those cops where the crime is, which means in minority neighborhoods. So it's one of the unintended consequences is people say, oh my God, you are arresting kids for marijuana that are all minorities. Yes, that's true. Why? Because we put all the cops in the minority neighborhoods. Yes, that's true. Why we do it? Because that's where all the crime is. And the way you get the guns out of the kids' hands is to throw them against the wall and frisk them. And then they say, oh, I don't want to get caught, so they don't bring the gun. They still have a gun, but they leave it at home.
All right. I don't know how much of that you could hear. And it wasn't Billy Bush. I think it was at Aspen. And he thought nobody was taping, but somebody was on their crappy cell phone voice recorder, probably. Anyway, he's describing the stop and frisk program. He is not in the least bit apologetic or doubtful about it. He is talking about how 95% of the offenders are black and Latino. He says throw them up against the wall and frisk them. He then says that'll get the guns out of their hands. They won't bring the guns. They might leave the guns at home. In general, though, it's not a piece of tape you would want to have to defend. Now, what he has done so far, as far as I can see, is kind of disavow it in a crabby way on Twitter. Okay, so that's not going to cut it, all right? I mean, if in fact he wants black and Latino voters to vote for him, something on Twitter is not. He needs something like this.
I have sinned against you, my Lord. And I would ask that your precious blood would wash and cleanse every stain until it is in the seas of God's forgetfulness. Thank you. Thank you. And God bless you.
See how well that could go? That was Jimmy Swaggart. I can't listen to it without laughing. It's the thank yous that get me every single time. But okay, so kidding aside, one of the things that Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, who are tremendous politicians, I mean, just unbelievably skilled and adept politicians, knew that they understood. Sometimes you really have to make a speech, and you have to make a speech that speaks to and specifically addresses the trouble you're in over something. Whether it's Jennifer Flowers or the Reverend Jeremiah Wright, it doesn't matter. You have to make the speech, and the speech has got to be defining. It has to, in many cases, like for Obama with Jeremiah Wright, he had to, in some ways, distance himself from Jeremiah Wright without looking like he was bailing and without without alienating black voters, without saying, well, I'm not one of you guys. He had to really find a rhetorical sweet spot that really expressed all these things. For Bloomberg, it should be easier. All he has to do is say, this policy was rubbish, and I was in the wrong place. I was just wrong, and I'm one of these kinds of people. I will try something if I think it's going to work. That's all I really care about is whether something's going to work or not. I don't really operate from this huge base of ideals and principles. And that one didn't work and I shouldn't have done it. And I now understand that there were ideals and principles that somebody should have gotten me to invoke to not do. I mean, I could write him a real speech, in half an hour that would get him out of this. But you'd have to be the kind of person who'd want to give that speech. The person who doesn't want to give that speech is not going to make it. And so somebody pointed out to me earlier today, Bloomberg made the biggest part of his fortune, the defining part of his fortune, when he's like about 30. So in a lot of ways, he's similar to some of these tech guys. And it's sort of like you're voting for, Mark Zuckerberg at the age of whatever age when he's older and crabbier, the older and crabbier Mark Zuckerberg. So he's going to be defensive and he's not going to make that speech. All right, going to go to the calls here. Let's go to Dan in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Hey, Colin, thanks for taking my call. I like to piggyback on what you just said. I live in New York City under Bloomberg, and you took the words right out of my mouth. He's a cool technocratic operator, and he does not have the rhetorical chops to dance with Mr. Trump. And I'm not a Bernie bro, but I do think he's the only candidate that can rhetorically tear down the BS that Trump tries to shovel down our throats every day about being a man of the people. And I think Bernie can reach out, and I think he can deliver that message. And I also, counter to your point about the running mate, I'm not suggesting that Amy Klobuchar is LBJ or anything like that, but I do think there are times, and I think this is one of them, where an operator who can pull off a couple states, and we all know that in 2016 the difference is just a couple states in the Midwest and in the Heartland, and if she can just push those over the line, I honestly think that's our best chance at this point. And if a voter thinks that getting Trump out of office is the number one priority, they have to marshal their forces and get behind whoever gets the nomination. But that's the combo that I think is going to win the day in November. All
right. Well, listen, Dan, thanks very much. Thanks for your call. Oh, it's nice to hear from Rhode Island as well. Let's hear from Greg in Manchester. Hi, Greg. You're on the air.
Hi. Thanks a lot. I am a Warren supporter, but I am very much opposed to Buttigieg and Bloomberg. I think I'd have a hard time voting for either one of them.
Say why?
The reason Bloomberg in particular, I think, is stop and frisk is kind of, for me, kind of the tip of the iceberg. That third term that he paid for is a demonstration of the fact that he, not unlike Trump, sort of thinks that his wealth is sufficient to demonstrate that he's kind of beyond the rest of us, that the rules don't apply to him. And I don't think we need that anymore. And Buttigieg just, the mayor of the fourth largest city in Indiana thinks he can go from that to being president of the United States. That speaks to me of someone who's arrogant and just not in touch with reality.
Greg, he got them a fifth traffic light. That is not a small thing. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely well. Am I wrong to think that race is a factor in both? I mean, obviously we just went through Bloomberg. Buttigieg has done a very poor job, particularly in the New Hampshire debate, in answering questions about race. You wouldn't think, that in his incredibly brief public service career he'd have a chance to have too many problems with race, but he does seem to have had them.
It is very definitely a problem, and it's not one that he has addressed well. Mm-hmm. In fact, he's addressed it extremely poorly. Apparently there's video of him in a confrontation with one of his black female constituents, essentially telling her that he didn't think it was worth his time to engage with her, and he wasn't interested in her vote. And the statistics I've read said that the backbone of the Democratic Party right now, the only people they can count on are black women, and for somebody to essentially disparage one in her hometown, in her home, essentially, is just beyond the pale. Let
me ask you this question. And it's just a question. I think one of the things that you can say looking at this whole field is that there are going to be people who have problems with most of the front runners. I mean, Biden's just kind of verbally a train wreck and he's weird. And, and Bernie, a lot of people think, well, he's a socialist and it's just maybe going to be too much. And then I think you've articulated some pretty significant problems that Buttigieg and Bloomberg would have, particularly in the area of race. But we go through the whole thing. And the question is, how many of these problems extend into the general election? In other words, how many of the people who've basically pressed the alarm button about a Trump presidency and who are terrified by the second term of a Trump presidency are willing to go past the very legitimate concerns that they might have about any of these candidates? I don't know. What's your in terms of you, for example? I don't know. We got into a general election. Are you so disgusted with Bloomberg that you would just stay home?
I would not stay home. I might actually hold my nose and vote for him, although I have real doubts about whether I do that. But I tell you what I wouldn't do is make a big effort to get other people to vote for him. It just the impetus to do that just wouldn't be there. As opposed to, I would do that for Klobuchar, even though I'm not right now a supporter of hers. If she ends up being the nominee, I'll do whatever it takes to get her elected.
All right. So, I mean, to me, this is an interesting part of it, because I do think, that the sides are chosen now. The question is, how hard is each side going to play? I mean, I'm not talking about the primary. I'm talking about the general election. And so I don't know. Anyway, thanks very much for your call. Very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Very interesting. We have a line or two open. We're going to take a break right now. The number is 888-720-WNPR, 888-720-9677. I might explain why I think the Democratic field right now is basically Gilligan's Island.
Forget it, but your heart's still smoking. Call me at the station. The lines are open.
All right. So some quick shout outs here, especially to our intern Khalil, who's like new on the job here and has been very, very helpful today in shaping some of our thinking here and pointing some sound bites that we'll probably be using here if I get my act together. Also, special thanks to Kat Pastor, who's new on the board, and Kyone Wolf, who's sitting next to Kat Pastor, making sure that all of the Wolf wisdom gets. We actually have their heads connected by a coaxial cable right now. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that because I think there's an HR problem with it. But we are basically downloading Kyone Wolf into Kat Pastor right now. And I mean, we have a nurse there and everything. I don't think anything could go wrong. Let's see. The part of Bill Curry today was kind of played by Bill Curry because I talked to him on the phone for a long time before before I came here. And then we should say that, what else do you need to know? You need to know that tomorrow is a show about fake news. Actually, we did it a while ago, but CPTV has this very exciting documentary called Fake, which is debuting on Thursday night. And so we wanted to kind of help them out a little bit and kind of, get you in the mood. And then on Friday, we're going to do The Nose. The Nose is going to be at least partly about The Outsider, the Stephen King adaptation currently airing on HBO. I think we might be talking about Snoop versus Gail Ree Kobe, if you can follow that. And Carolyn Payne is going to acquaint us with the latest bizarre dating phenomenon, which is basically what she does a lot on The Nose. Okay, so what should I do? I should go to the phones. But I should just say that I want to get this off my chest, even though it'll make some people mad because they'll think I'm not taking it seriously enough. But I was thinking today that you can't have if you have too many candidates, you can't even think about them, right? So in 2016, that Republican field, and it's Rubio and Cruz and Carly Fiorina and Ben, Ben Carson and Trump and Jeb, ! And it just went on, and Kasich, and it just went on, and you just couldn't get your minds around it at all. By the way, did I actually thank Betsy Kaplan? Did I thank Betsy Kaplan? I didn't know. And she's in there. She's actually wrecking one of the studios. She's so angry. Betsy Kaplan's the producer of this show, and she produced this episode. Okay, so anyway, you have too many people, right? So the good thing about the Democratic field is it's almost down to one of the most famously manageable units of information, which is Gilligan's Island, right? We're almost there, right? It's like, let's see, the socialist, the school teacher, the gay mayor and his husband, the billionaire, and the rest. See, we're almost there. Somebody pointed out that poor Marianne should, she's the only person, I think she's the only character who's not mentioned in the song. but they just go and the rest. It's like, that doesn't seem right somehow. Anyway, back to more serious things. I'm really sorry. Here is, who am I supposed to talk to first? Anthony. I see the name Anthony. All right, I'm going to go to Anthony in Middletown. Hi, Anthony. You're on the air.
Hey, Colin. How you doing?
Just fine.
I just wanted to say, kick this off and express to you, I'm so excited. So excited you are less Bloomberg curious right now.
Yeah.
Because that is so important.
I'm over it.
He is a Republican. He is a Bush supporter. He is an Iraq war supporter. And stop and frisk is, in fact, going to stop him from advancing, because the black vote, in terms of beating Trump, is so important.
I'm agreeing with most of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's easy for people who are listening to the show who most likely are white to write off the stop and frisk thing, because when Mike Bloomberg is on tape flippantly talking about throwing black kids up against the wall and frisking them, he's not talking about their kids. Black mothers and black fathers hear that, and they are not going to vote for him. And of course, he will get some black turnout if he does end up being the nominee. But turnout will be low. And when black turnout is low, we lose. It was low for Hillary. They turned out for Bill, though, and we won. And they turned out massively for Obama, and we won then, too. And if you give not just black voters, but voters across America in general, the choice between one jerk, racist billionaire and another, turnout's going to be low. That's not a choice. That's not a choice anybody is excited about. And now that we've established that the black vote matters, and it does, because Republicans try to suppress it all the time, to the point where the Supreme Court had to tell them to stop suppressing it in North Carolina. They know that when it's low, they win. And look, if we want to win, we got to see where that vote's going, and it's not going to Pete.
All right.
And
So
it's not going to Amy.
So Anthony, just out of the blue, I don't know you, you don't know me. Have you given any thought to the playlists of these candidates? Like what kind of music you think Bloomberg is listening to right now? Yeah, no, maybe not. Maybe not. No, I'm pretty sure I do know who that is. That's why I asked. All right, so we're going to go to. Oh, you say Ed. You say Ed. I say Lynn. How about Lynn? Can I go to Lynn? Can I do? All right. We're going to do it to Ed and Lynn, but I'm going to go to Lynn first because I want to be challenged by Lynn. Hi, Lynn.
Hey, I think that the media and pundits and the general conversations are always framed around how do we beat Trump? How do we get him out? But I do agree with you. This is an emergency election, but it's an emergency because if we don't decide to not fund, have the corporations and Wall Street decide what is in their best interest and continue to make profits off of our health care and our children and our students, then we are truly lost.
True. I mean, first of all, I don't think those two things have to be mutually exclusive of one another. And so actually, this is a good Bill Curryism. He said, really, we often frame these things the wrong way. We ought to frame them in terms of big and small. The big things have been eating the small things for a really long time. And that's something that we really need to think about, that so much of the concern that somebody like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders might have about the corporate sector or about Wall Street, this is big things eating small things. And that ultimately we should see that as by and large a bad thing, whether we're talking about big companies eating smaller companies, but whether we're talking about large blocks of money overwhelming groups of people who don't have the kind of money to get themselves heard. I mean, I think that's a useful piece of rhetoric no matter what kind of election you're running. Of course, I may not be responding effectively to anything you just said.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of rhetoric because I see, what's actually happening. I work in a soup kitchen,
mm-hmm.
and those, that's just something. It's not. People are not aware of how much people are mowed down by this system.
Yeah,
and you can't work for the people if you're taking money from corporations or super PACs or Wall Street. You just can't do it. You will end up answering to them instead.
All right. Well, listen. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Let me put you back up here. Sorry.
Historic election.
Yeah. Okay, well, Lynn, thank you so much for calling. Sorry I cut you off there. I thought you were done. And I am going to go now to Ed, because I was told to go to Ed, and I do what I'm told. Hi, Ed. You're from Niantic.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
My comment is I am a supporter of Pete Buttigieg. The only thing that bothers me, because he is a Democrat running as an openly gay man, is that conservatives, if he does become the Democratic nominee, the Conservative Party will not vote for him because he is openly gay.
Well, okay, I want to address this in two different ways. But let's begin by reminding everybody, you probably already know about this, about Geert, the woman at the Iowa caucuses.
So are you saying that he has a same-sex partner? He? Yes. Yes. Are you kidding? Yeah, he's married to him, yeah. We need to find out that serious. Well, then I don't want anybody like that in the White House. So can I have my card back? I don't know. You signed it. We could go ask. I never knew that.
That's Geert. That was at the Iowa caucuses. She had actually handed in her card so that she would caucus with the Buttigieg group, and then she found out that he was gay. And then later in that cut, it's such a muddy cut, but she says they should have told people about that. So one question is, I mean, there are a lot of questions about what you're saying, Ed, which is how many Geerts are there out in the world? This is a woman at a Democratic caucus, after all. There's also a slightly sensitive question about whether Black and Latino voters have problems with the idea of a gay president. I really looked at a lot of the social science on this, and it's not as dispositive as people make it seem. People go, they are more likely to be homophobic or whatever. There really isn't a lot of good social science / data on that proves that. And one thing that we can absolutely say is that as cohorts of younger voters come into the market, whether they're Black, whether they're Latino, whatever, they're more likely to be super comfortable with LGBTQs. The younger the voter is, the newer the voter is, the more likely this is not an issue. And I don't know. I mean, I first of all, will conservative voters reject Pete Buttigieg? Yeah, probably for a lot of reasons. I mean, to get back to the sort of Rachel Beitkofer idea, a lot of these people have already decided which side they're voting on or which side they would vote for if they decided to vote at all. They know they're going to vote for a Republican presidential candidate, or they know they're going to vote for a Democratic presidential candidate. They know that. The real question is, how much do they care? How likely are they to really participate in the process? Are they likely to vote? Are they likely, as I think Greg was saying, to try to get other people to vote? That's what the issue is. So I'm not really sure. I mean, first of all, I would like to think in 2020, particularly after a man named Barack Hussein Obama, a man who's familially half Black, named Barack Hussein Obama, won the presidency twice. I would like to think that, a military veteran, who's a gay married man is not going to freak out that many people. But there is something of a chasm that exists between what I would like to think and what is actually the case. And so it may be more of a problem than I would imagine. But once again, everybody has a problem. I mean, Trump has 80 problems, right? He's a big, foul-mouthed, intolerant guy with no policies who doesn't know how to do the job and doesn't want to learn and, has strange eating habits and breathing habits. It's just like everything's wrong with Donald Trump. There's so many things wrong with Donald Trump. You can't get them on the air in 49 minutes. And so then here's squeaky clean Pete Buttigieg, who is like, neat as a pin in every possible way and happens to be gay. And it's like, wow, people, that could be a real deal breaker. And maybe that's true, but I don't want to, I can't believe that that's true. But it's going to be true for some people because people are people. All right. Anyway. I'm exhausted, and I still have one more radio show to do. That's not good. All right, thanks to Betsy Kaplan, and a special thanks to Betsy Kaplan, because I forgot to thank Betsy Kaplan at one point. And thanks to everybody else, and Kat, and Khalil, and Wolfie, and you for listening and calling.